It can be overwhelming when you're so far behind financially you can't pay your bills. And to make matters worse, creditors will call and threaten foreclosure or repossession of your property. Depending on your situation, filing for bankruptcy might be an option, but before you do, you have to determine if it's the right step for you. Here to talk about the process and how it works is attorney Peter Ressler from Groob, Ressler Mulqueen. Welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here. I know your firm is also one of the oldest bankruptcy law firms in New England.
We are, although I'm not the oldest bankruptcy lawyer.
No, we didn't say that. All right, so let's break it down for our viewers. What exactly does it mean when you file bankruptcy?
Okay, people who come to us usually present with problems such as foreclosures, collection calls that are unbearable, repossessions of their cars, garnishment of their wages. So we analyze every situation. For every one that I recommend bankruptcy, there's one that I probably suggest that there are other alternatives. But when people come to us in catastrophic situations, often bankruptcy is the alternative, because what it does is it creates an immediate cessation of those types of aggressive activities that compromise their life.
So you don't necessarily have to pay the bills right away.
No, if the type of bankruptcies that we often recommend are either a Chapter 7 bankruptcy for people who don't have foreclosures or don't have property but do have overwhelming debt with medical bills, credit cards, and those people we often recommend Chapter 7. The filing of the petition automatically stops the efforts to collect the debt. In fact, it even stops the telephone calls. And that often brings peace,
peace of mind, a little weight off your shoulders, right?
It sure does. People just find this overwhelming. We discussed how the entire lifestyle is changed by the threat of these collection activities.
Sure, you lose sleep at night, I would assume. And talk to me how Chapter 13 differs from 7.
Chapter 13 is utilized primarily when people come in with foreclosures, because the Chapter 13 process allows people to repay the past due amounts over a period up to 60 months or 5 years. So it gives them a respite from the foreclosure process. It allows them to reinstate their mortgage and get back into the good graces of their lender.
And it takes a couple of years to do that typically, or?
The plans can go up to 6 years. Most people elect for the 6 years because it gives them the smaller repayment schedule. But it protects them from the foreclosure, it stops the process, and at the end the loan is reinstated and they're back as if they hadn't defaulted.
Sure. So let me ask you the procedure. You have a client call you the first time.
Right.
How do you interact with them?
We receive telephone calls, we schedule an appointment. There's no obligation for our meeting with them, and sometimes it can take a half hour, an hour, and we present them the entire panorama of available options for them. Bankruptcy is not always the option, but it's one that is often recommended when the situation is just so intolerable. And after that, we provide them with all the materials that they need to familiarize themselves with the process. We explain to them the cost involved. We tell them what they need to bring us should they choose to proceed with the process. And then it's up to them to get back to us and decide if that's the route they're comfortable with.
Sure. Now, can a person still file for bankruptcy if there are judgments against them?
Yeah, that often seems to be a confusion for people. They think that once a judgment is obtained against them, that there's nothing that can be done, but that's not true.
Okay.
The bankruptcy process will stop the enforcement of that judgment.
And if pay is garnished, how does that play into it?
That's something that often comes as a result of an emergency situation when people suddenly get their pay stub and notice there's been a garnishment effected against us. They don't walk to us because we can provide them with immediate relief. Within days, we can reverse that garnishment. And not because we're very special, but the law is there to protect them.
Oh, so it's worth a phone call then to you,
I
right?
think so.
Let me ask you what people need to be aware about when it comes to foreclosures.
Foreclosures, people often get served by a marshal, and they receive papers and tells them that they're being sued, and they're given opportunities to elect for a mediation in advance of the foreclosure going through. They have 15 days once the matter is returned to court to make that election. That gives them an opportunity to work with the lender to see if they can mediate the differences and try to effectuate a resolution before the foreclosure process goes through. That process, unfortunately, is not always successful. People are very frustrated with it. The success rate is not huge. we are there, the backup for the failure of that process.
And let me ask you about credit score. I'm assuming you probably don't have clients that have 800 credit scores walking in to your office, but the damage has already been done at that point? Is that one way to look at it?
Most people come to our office already have suffered significant hits against their credit scores, so the bankruptcy process is not one that's going to make that much worse. What it does allow is to stabilize the situation, start over, and then after the bankruptcy, they can start to try to rebuild their credit. They can take out secured loans, they can get co-signed loans, and they can start to act responsibly in the credit community so that their credit score in the future can restore itself. We have people who file bankruptcy within a couple of years, they're back into the 700s, so
oh, wow.
There is life after bankruptcy.
Well, Donald Trump, right? That's a pretty good example.
There you go.
All right, let's put some information up on the screen. If you'd like to get a hold of anyone over at Groob, Ressler Mulqueen, they're located at 123 York Street in New Haven. You can call 203-777-5741 or visit GroobResslerMulqueen.com. Attorney, thanks so much for being here and for all the advice.